is part 3 of chapter 3 of Becoming Sister Wives. From the point of view of Cody, we are in Christine's matrimony chapter. After I married Janelle, we traveled down to Utah for a weekend to visit Mary's parents. While we were there, we invited Christine over for dinner. I was used to the gregarious, bubbly Christine, but when she showed up that evening, I immediately sensed an underlying sadness and turmoil within her. It made me sad to see her struggling. On her way out the door, I pulled her aside. We stepped out on the porch so we could chat. Then I asked her what was wrong. Nothing. Everything's fine, she said. I knew she wasn't telling the truth, and I told her so. I insisted that she tell me what was going on. She was my friend, I loved her, and I needed to know what was breaking her heart. It's my parents' divorce, she said. This admission opened up the floodgates, and suddenly Christine felt that she could be open and honest with me once more. I felt the old spark that had always been between us ignite again. You know, Christine, I said, this ordeal may help you in the future. It will make you stronger and more self-aware. And one day you're going to marry a man who is going to appreciate that you've been through something like this and that you have survived it. I didn't tell her at the time, but I had a feeling that man she would marry was going to be me. Now it's from Christine. Cody really knew how to break my heart. When he told me that one day I'd marry a man who would appreciate my strength, I was distraught. It seemed that he was implying that he was not going to be the man in my future. Even though I was devastated, I was still more than a little smitten. That night when Cody left, I stood at the door to Mary's parents' house and said goodbye. It's not goodbye, Cody said. It's au revoir. Even though Cody's line was cheesy, it sent a current of electricity down my spine. He was flirting with me. Cody shut the door and walked down the steps with Mary toward their car, leaving me inside. Mary's family immediately sensed what had passed between Cody and me. They all gave me knowing looks. Their faces were warm and inviting, as if they were giving me and Cody their approval. Mary's family encouragement was too much for me. I believed I gave a small... Oh! Okay, damn. Okay. I believe I gave a small fist pump of joy, then swooned on the couch. I have always been a little dramatic. I knew that no matter what he said, Cody was still the one for me. A few months later, Cody and Mary... Oh, okay. Good Lord. Now we're good. Cody and Mary came down to Utah for the New Year's ball at our church. Cody asked me to dance over and over and over. I was giddy and could barely keep my feet on the floor. It was the best night of my life. I felt as I were glittering and glowing. Right after New Year's, I got a call from Mary saying she was planning a surprise party for Cody in Wyoming. She wanted to know if I would bring a group of friends up from Utah. Naturally, I was delighted. I simply couldn't wait to see Cody again. When Cody walked into the room for his surprise party and saw a bunch of us gathered there, his eyes locked on mine. I knew then how he felt. It gave me courage. The next day, we found ourselves alone for the first time. We were sitting on the couch, and I just came out with it. Of all the guys I know, you are the one I'd want to marry. I was proud of myself for being so forthcoming and honest. Mary's sister Teresa and I drove back to Utah that night. We giggled the entire ride about my future with Cody. When I got back home, I immediately approached my grandfather, who was the head of our church. Should Cody Brown ask, I said, tell him that the answer is yes. Let him know that I definitely want to be a part of his family. Cody, but from the point of view of Cody. Christine made it really easy for me to get permission to court her. When I called her dad, he was thrilled. This is great, Cody. This is great, he said. It was exactly what he'd been hoping for. Christine's father was aware of how she glowed when we were together. He was also aware of how she had pushed all the other boys to the sidelines in favor of me. He wanted her to be happy, and now he knew that she made me happy. Christine just loves you, her father said. His only question for me was regarding my loyalty to our church. In his mind, this single question determines worthiness. Since the day I converted, my faith has never wavered, not for a single second. I told him that, and he was convinced. On Valentine's Day, I asked Mary's sister Teresa, who lived in Utah near Christine, to buy a bouquet of roses. I instructed her to write, "Let's get the ball rolling" on the card. Teresa offered to deliver the roses to Christine at work. Christine was a title clerk at a car dealership. The whole office knew she was from a polygamous family. In fact, they knew that she had a crush on me, a man with 2 wives. It's a testament to Christine's outgoing nature and wonderful personality that people do not judge her for her beliefs. It turns out that day the day I asked Teresa to send Christine flowers, Christine had called in sick to work, but by some wonderful coincidence, she had called Teresa to let her know she was unwell and would be staying home, so Teresa knew where to deliver the roses. That night I called Christine. We were both overjoyed and a little giddy. The following weekend, Janelle and I traveled down to Utah. Janelle generously offered to hang out with some people in our church so that I could have some time alone with Christine. Janelle was very sweet and accepting of my courtship with Christine. I knew that things were difficult between her and Mary in the house, and I believe she was hoping for a new sister wife to be her friend or ally. Mary was slightly more prickly when I started dating Christine. However, she liked Christine and was aware of how close the two of us were. I'm sure as far as Mary was concerned, bringing Christine into the family was just a matter of time. Christine and I spent as much time together as possible that weekend. It wasn't what I'd call romantic. Christine was quite puritanical in her view of romance and courtship, but we had fun. I think we held hands and maybe hugged once or twice, but that was the extent of it. That weekend, we got engaged. I wanted to prolong our engagement, but Christine didn't want to. She insisted on setting a wedding date as quickly as possible. She believed that a long courtship would be inappropriate and unfair on her new sister wives. She didn't want to be running around with a married man. I tried telling her that I wasn't quite ready, but Christine felt that she had already waited so long. We had been friends for 3 years. We decided to get married in 6 weeks. The minute I asked Christine to marry me, I realized that I had once again acted too quickly. I was in over my head. I was not even 25. I already had 2 wives, and Janelle was expecting our first child. The thought of trying to bring Christine into our family gave me some serious pause. I'm afraid I showed up at our wedding with what Christine calls a 1,000-yard stare. Suddenly, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was nervous and apprehensive. I knew there was a lot in my life that Christine didn't understand. She had only ever seen me as the life of the party and the good time guy. She didn't know how tense things were between Mary and Janelle, and she hadn't much opportunity to get to know them herself. When I proposed, I was working at a job that was crushing my soul. Mary and Janelle were miserable with each other, and I didn't know how to negotiate a truce between them, and now I was introducing a third wife into an unstable environment. I had no doubt that Christine was the right person, but I sensed it was too early to marry her. All of this was running through my head as I joined Christine in marriage. What I didn't know then was that Christine would become a major factor in our success as a family. Her kindness and her positive nature brokered a peace in our household. Christine saved our bacon, as I like to say. She saved the Browns. But back then, all I could see were the struggles that lay ahead. I worked right up until the day we got married. I even had a hard time getting off work to attend my own wedding. Christine had to organize the whole wedding herself. Neither my father nor Christine's mother attended the ceremony. It was a hard day for us. I didn't have time to plan a honeymoon. In fact, it didn't even occur to me to plan one. No one told me that I should. When I wasn't buried in work, I was a ping pong ball bouncing between 2 wives who always had their bristles up. Obviously, they weren't interested in advising me on what I should do with Christine. After our wedding, Christine got in the car and drove to Montana. It was a tense trip, and I have to admit that I wasn't my most cheerful self. Christine and I had gone from being buddies to being married. We hadn't had time to get used to each other, and I hadn't prepared myself for the transition of adding a new wife to my family. From the point of Christine, I was shaken when Cody showed up at our wedding with that look on his face. He was morose. I was even more devastated when I learned that he hadn't planned a honeymoon. I was hoping that we'd finally have a romantic getaway, something special that told me how thrilled he was to have me and his family. I was young and naive. I had no idea how to tell Cody what I wanted from him. On our honeymoon, a drive through the sticks of Montana, I was struck by a realization that I didn't know Cody very well. Once we got into the car, he still had that faraway look on his face that I'd seen at our wedding. He seemed distant and unreachable. I began to understand that he felt overwhelmed. However, I didn't know how to talk to him about what he was feeling. I had no idea how to reach out to him. I just sat there in silence. Watching him drive with that look on his face made me unbearably sad. I realized I had no idea how to express my feelings with him or ask him to share his with me. I never doubted that Cody was the man of my dreams, but I began to worry that I married him too soon. Until our honeymoon, I had thought he was a fun-loving guy, but that was the extent of it. Now there was this grumpy, distant man at my side, burdened by something I couldn't understand, and I worried that I might be the source of his anxiety. Like many young women, I had idealized marriage. I had this silly notion that the moment you got married, your problems ended. I was fixated on the idea of happily ever after. I thought marriage, especially plural marriage, would be absolute bliss. What could be better than being blessed with a husband and sisters in one fell swoop? I didn't understand that marriage is something you must work on. I didn't know that true love isn't instantaneous, but something that develops over time. While Cody and I did love each other, it took us about a year from the day we married to fall completely head over heels for each other. It would be a hard year, but well worth the wait. And that's it for chapter 3. The next chapter is Cody and Robin, the She-Ra chapter, and I'm going to do it for tomorrow. I promise.